From the Evening Standard in London, this is The Leader.
Evening Standard, it's your Evening Standard.
Hi, I'm David Marsland. Extinction Rebellion are back on the streets of London, and they're promising to stay for 2 weeks. Extinction! We'll be talking to The Standard's John Dunne, who's been watching the protests at Trafalgar Square. Later,
it's pretty exciting because the whole of the London theatre world is there. Stephen Daldry once told me the Standard Awards were for him the start of the Christmas party season.
Our critic Nick Curtis on final preparations for next month's Evening Standard Theatre Awards, including who the all-important host is. And everyone gets excited when there's a whale in the Thames. This time, it's a big one.
Women Tech Charge from the Evening Standard is back.
Like, do you think we just times bigger and bigger numbers together? It's not what we do.
I'm Anne-Marie Maffedon, and this season we're talking to brilliant women innovators from all over the world.
For me, it's all about timing and speed. So I like to be punctual and I like to be, fast.
Susie Wolf on how to be a racing driver.
People couldn't tell if it was a girl or a boy in the car. They could just tell if the car was quick or not.
Rachel Riley's taking on trolls.
There are people that just like to troll. They just enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Do maths, not war.
The motto of life. We've also got crime, robots, and stories from inspiring women doing amazing things. How does one go about getting a watch named after them by Microsoft?
Magic and flute.
It's a show about tech, about life, and about pretty much anything else we want to talk about. Drunk maths is an idea.
That's uni.
Like drunk histories. We should pitch that. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts.
They called this their opening ceremony at Marble Arch, and it began a day of disruption in London that heralds a promised 2 weeks of protest and roadblocks. Extinction Rebellion say it's essential to keep people focused on a climate emergency. Here's what The Standard thinks.
Extinction Rebellion has a very particular demand, and that's a call to halt species extinction and greenhouse gas emissions in the UK by 2025. They want the law changed to enforce it, and a random group of 1,000 citizens brought together to make it happen. There are two problems with this. The first is that no one has voted for it to happen. The second is that it's impossible. So Extinction Rebellion are calling for something that just won't happen. Of course, they are aware of this. Their aim is to be noticed and change minds by causing chaos and breaking laws. Meanwhile, the police have a duty to respond, uphold the rule of law and keep our streets open. Already lots of protesters have been arrested, and that's exactly what they want.
We've had reporters at several protest sites around London. John Dunne was at Trafalgar Square and said this earlier.
Several hundred Extinction Rebellion protesters are unfurling banners, shouting, banging drums, and have stopped the traffic. They've pulled up in the middle of Trafalgar Square in a hearse as a stunt. Several protesters have chained themselves to the wheel of the hearse. And that has brought the whole square to an absolute standstill. Police are currently trying to free the protesters. There are several hundred police in attendance across Westminster. Many roads have been blocked. Lambeth Bridge, Westminster Bridge, and now Trafalgar Square.
Yeah, but you could cancel the crime and then you'd have less paperwork and we could just learn our lessons.
No, because you won't.
We can't have it here.
I don't believe you will. Made in previous camps and the previous incident and also earlier today that I've been witness to where we've asked nicely, it hasn't worked, and therefore things have to be seized.
Earlier, 2 protesters chained themselves to a car on the embankment outside the Ministry of Defence. They chained themselves at 6 o'clock in the morning and were not freed until 10 o'clock in the morning. So obviously commuters faced traffic jams along the embankment from very early. Up to a dozen protests going on across Westminster and central London, with Downing Street and Parliament Square also being targeted.
Well, the newspaper's editorial also says Greta Thunberg's peaceful campaigning has arguably had a bigger impact than the Extinction Rebellion protests, but it certainly impacted on the centre of London, with several transport links disrupted today. You can keep up to date or get ahead of the protests with the Evening Standard online, which has been running live updates, and there's full coverage with pictures in tonight's newspaper. Next. Who's hosting the Evening Standard Theatre Awards? We raise the curtain with Nick Curtis. Clear the stage, set the lights. The Evening Standard Theatre Awards are on their way. For 65 years, they've been some of the most prestigious honours in Theatreland. Our critic, Nick Curtis, is away from the newsroom, writing an upcoming feature for the newspaper, but he's broken away from the keyboard just to speak to us. Nick, let's start with the most important question. Who's going to host?
Well, this year, following in the footsteps of Phoebe Waller-Bridge, is Cush Jumbo, who is an extremely talented London-born actress from Lewisham, who has been a terrific stage star in her time and is now probably more famous for appearing in The Good Wife and The Good Fight out in America.
Yeah, she's really made a name for herself over the last few years, hasn't she? She's a true rising talent.
She has. She is a true rising talent. And the thing is, she's not just an actor. She's sort of a triple threat. She's an actor, writer and dancer. And a lot of her... she gained quite a lot of notice playing some quite leading roles up in Manchester, but also still appearing as Mark Antony in the Donmar Warehouse's famous all-female Shakespeare trilogy. But she then produced this one-woman show of her own called Josephine and I, about Josephine Baker, in which she played 22 characters, including Josephine Baker, including men and women, and blew everybody away. I mean, this dazzling, all-singing, all-dancing phenomenon.
So she's one of those actors, and actually Phoebe Waller-Bridge is the same, who hosted last year, who have come up through theatre, and are now dominant in all kinds of mediums, really, aren't they?
Exactly, and interestingly, Fleabag and Josephine and I both appeared the same year, 2013, I think that's right. Certainly, she and Phoebe Waller-Bridge know one another and were sort of consoling each other when they were trying to get these little one-woman shows off the ground and nobody was coming to see them. But it is from these sort of small acorns in theatre that huge careers grow. And it is indicative of how the London theatre world in particularly feeds into the international world of television and film. Not just writers, but directors, producers, and especially writers, I would say.
And that's one of the things that the Standard Theatre Awards kind of brings out, doesn't it? It highlights the people who you're going to know, who may not be a household name for those who watch movies and television, but they will be soon.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I remember some years back that we recognised a young actor who nobody had ever heard of called Matt Smith, and I think he's gone on to do some fairly successful things in other media as well. And he's now actually coming back to the stage, which he does regularly, to appear at the Old Vic in Lungs with Claire Foy, his co-star, who also came up, through London theatre before carving out this massive TV career. The Standard Awards have got a really good track record of recognising talent, especially actors. Chiwetel Ejiofor was a promising newcomer as well, Eve Best, sundry others, but also one of our most promising newcomers was Rufus Norris, the director who now runs the National Theatre.
So everyone's attention is going to be on the stage, Nick, but I bet you, with all that mix of talent, old and new, backstage must be pretty interesting too.
Well, it's pretty exciting because the whole of the London theatre world is there all at the same time, and they very rarely get to see one another because they're always on stage at the same time. But there's a load of goodwill and just a lot of sort of celebration behind the scenes. Stephen Daldry once told me, who used to run the Royal Court before going off to direct award-winning theatre, award-winning films and produce the 2012 Olympic opening ceremonies, that the Standard Awards were for him the start of the Christmas party season each year.
Now, a very large whale was seen in London this morning, causing much excitement in the city, including in the Standard's newsroom, which couldn't help but greet the guest with a couple of lines in today's editorial.
A humpback whale has just been spotted in the Thames, passing the Dartford crossing and reportedly heading upstream. It's a year after a beluga whale was seen near Southend. Maybe the visitor will swim up to join the Extinction Rebellion at Lambeth Bridge. It's a welcome guest in our city, but let's hope it turns around and makes its way back to the open sea safely soon.
And that's it from The Leader. Why not try out our audio updates on your smart speaker? Just ask for the news from the Evening Standard. There's a fresh bulletin at 7 a.m. This podcast is back tomorrow at 4. Get in touch on social media with the hashtag TheLeaderPodcast.